Welcome to this video on creating patterns in volumes of data. In the module so far, you have worked with random quantities of data, and because they are random quantities, there have been no trends within the seasonal sales. But in the assignment, you've been asked to identify 3 analytical business questions, including something that demonstrates showing the finding of a trend. In this video session, we will show you of a method that starts with random sales of data and a lot of data, and then for each of the sales periods, you will be able to delete a carefully chosen percentage. Whatever data is left will show seasonal trends. Let's show this in Excel. The data here is from the 20,000 sales records that we generated in the fact sales table. And there is a little bit of variation over the year, but this is purely random. There's no particular trend behind this. Now let's contrast that with what we would like to see. Let's do these deletions in SQL Server. This video is assuming that you already have a star sales database, probably your own, and a list of facts in the facts table. We could ask to look at all the rows and a count of all the rows in the facts table, and there are currently 20,000. What we're going to do is take a good number of these, delete them, so we'll end up with fewer, but with a pattern behind them. Let's go back to have a look at all the values. Select star, select everything from the sales table, will list every record there is. Observe this identifier. The way we'll do our deletions is to take the last 2 digits of these, and that will generate us numbers anywhere in the range 0 to 99, and then when we want to delete a lot of rows, we will choose to delete every number less than, let's say, 80, and that would get rid of 80% of rows. Or if we chose to get rid of 75% of the rows, or even 50% of the rows, it's under our control how many we delete. So let's modify this query by adding an extra section. If we ask to look at the modulus of the identifier, let me run this and I'll show you what that does. This is taking the identifier column and then just showing the remainder from 100. So 88 is the remainder of 488. 7 is the remainder of 507. 90 is the remainder of 690. In effect, it's taking the last 2 digits of the identifier number. We could then narrow this down to say where this modulus number is less than a particular percentage. So if we chose 20 and ran that, it is now going to return just those rows where the last 2 digits turn out to be less than 20. But we could extend this to only select those dates that turn out to be in January. So now we have all the different dates that are in January, which are in the first 20% of the rows. Perhaps we wanted 30% from February. You'll see here that that selected 461 rows. Let's try 40% from March. That selected a higher number of rows, 659. Instead of just selecting, we could delete from the table where this. So for your practical exercise, what you could do is choose the percentage to delete from each month, January, February, March, etc., If you choose a high figure, you will be deleting a large percentage of those rows from that month, meaning that in the eventual sales, it will only appear to have a small number of records. And likewise, of course, if you choose to delete just a small percentage of records, then in your eventual sales, there will appear to be a high number of sales records. You don't have to do this completely one by one. In this example, I have already written out commands for each of the months. I did this in a word processor and then copied them across. So, I'm going to delete half of the January and half of the February sales. But in March, I'm only going to delete 35%. In April, a quarter. In May, a tenth. For June and for July, I'm going to delete almost no records. August, our sales are beginning to decline again. By September, they're down to the spring levels, and in the winter, they're back down to only half of the sales. So let me execute, and there we go. You can see the different number of rows being deleted. For the winter, there are a lot more, and they decline during the summer to no rows deleted, and then back to the winter. I'll now switch back to the data cube that we had in Visual Studio and regenerate the cube and run, and the cube should generate almost immediately because there wasn't that much data. It finished and we can close. Then again, ensuring that the cube is selected, we can go to the browser for the cube and to Excel and select the facts, and this time you can see that rather than 20,000 we're now down to 14,000, and if we choose to look by month, you can see that there's a low number of sales during the winter, it grew during the summer and then dropped off for the winter. And then if we ask to see a graph of this, it is now very clear that there is a seasonal trend behind the different months. So, what this video has showed is that if we start with a random set of sales data, and in particular if we have more data than we really need, and then for each sales period, for example for each month, you carefully delete a chosen percentage, then whatever data is left is going to show an appropriate trend. We've demonstrated this for months, but of course you could also look for days of the weeks. And you don't just have to delete the number of records. You could do some simple mathematics. For example, you may want to set the data so the value of sales increases steadily over the year. And to do this, you would typically update rows within the sales table rather than delete them. But we leave that as an exercise for your assignment. Thank you for watching this video.